Let's go through some house rules. As you entered the meeting room, your mics were put on mute. We ask that you keep yourselves on mute. This will ensure a smooth digital town hall session. If you have any questions, suggestions, and views you'd like to put out to the community, please send them to me and Bash on AB Main. And from there, all the questions and suggestions or comments will be flowed and passed on through to the questions and answer session. The town hall will be open for everybody then. I'll keep you posted when it's your turn. And from there, please unmute yourself and proceed with what you'd like to say or ask. Right. Skippy, I'm just meeting you there. So yeah, please note that this is a live streaming session and this is also being recorded to YouTube. So this means that you'll you can catch this on our AfrikaBurn YouTube channel. So hello to those on YouTube and thank you for joining there as well. And yeah, let's just wait a few more minutes, I guess. And let's see here, I think, and that's all. We've got everybody in. Mons, if you would like, you can take on the digital stage.
Cool, thanks, Bash. So are we officially starting?
Yes, let's start now. It's 7:05. We can start now.
Okay, cool. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see everyone. Although I have to say that I definitely prefer seeing all your faces dirty and dusty and sunburnt in the desert. So getting back to the digital platform is fabulous that we can, but my God, it was amazing to be able to gather again. And whether you liked it or hated it, I think that that was a very, very beautiful moment. And certainly the team has been feeling fairly, I think, maybe triumphant is the word. Well, a combo of triumphant and exhausted. In our classic AfrikaBurn way, there's never any kind of midway. It's either triumphant or exhausted or both. But yeah, it was an amazing thing to kind of be in that desert and also on our new land, which we've been imagining for so long. And then suddenly having this line of cars coming over the horizon it reminded me of the first AfrikaBurn, where Robert and I stood kind of staring at this line of cars coming over the horizon. We went, oh shit, we got to dig more toilets, because we really didn't expect 1,000 people. We were expecting maybe 250 people. So yeah, everyone got busy. But yeah, so there was definitely feelings of the kind of the pioneering days of AfrikaBurn in its first iteration at Stonehenge. But yeah, it was such an amazing thing to now be able to share that space where we've all been working so hard on that space, kind of like imagining and trying to work out the tech stuff and trying to work out absolutely everything, which was no small feat at all within a much smaller team than we've worked with before. Hence the exhaustion, but being able to share it with everybody was such an amazing feeling. And I think, I mean, overwhelmingly, we've had such a good response. And, you know, when you're in those kinds of harsh but extremely beautiful spaces, it's such a heart-opening experience. And then to be sharing that space with such amazing people as well. And yeah, it certainly reminded me of why I do this thing. And it really is, the basis of it is just love. It's just such a lovely thing. So congratulations to all of you. But we will take criticism, of course, because that's what we do. There's never any half measures at AfrikaBurn. You either loved it or you hated it. And I think that possibly some of the survey results will reveal some of that. Well, because it's not really a rational thing to do, AfrikaBurn. It's a different kind of rationality. But it's a distinctly irrational thing to do, but which is a beautiful thing. The other thing is the surveys, because obviously tonight is ostensibly about...
it's gone.
What's gone? Can I continue, Bash?
Yes, you can continue. I think there was someone I'll have to mute now.
Okay. So ostensibly this meeting is about the survey results, but obviously we always want feedback because it's such an important aspect of what we do. But I was at a City of Cape Town powwow once around surveys, and they said to us, one of the kind of wisdoms out there is that, you know, you mustn't overtax your participants, because and so don't do any surveys that are anything more than 15 questions. And I was just like, ha 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 ha. At AfrikaBurn, people are so committed that they grab that opportunity. And I don't know, we had about 50, right? And thank you to everybody who has filled in that survey, because it is very useful information to us. We do love our radical bureaucracy and our pie charts, because they do help tremendously with, it's just one of the methods by which we listen to our community. And there's a lot of other methods, but it's really important taking the time to do that. And we really do value it. So yeah, I think with that, I'll hand it over to Tim and Brian, who've been square-eyed crunching the numbers and making the pretties and all that kind of stuff, and they are going to be presenting from here on out. And then I think there's questions afterwards. Or Bash, you're going to be next, right? And see you later.
Yeah.
Thanks, Monique. Yeah, we've got 80 fantastic slides for you that you're going to have to endure as we go through all the event stuff. Is everyone seeing that? Great. Cool. So AfrikaBurn, the numbers. So in the end, there were 6,100 of us on the ground. We had 533 people respond to the survey, which was great. 76 mutant vehicles, 60 artworks, 54 theme camps, 50 survey questions, as Mon said, 6 burns that all came together in one amazing event. And yeah, just a huge thank you to everyone who took part. Thanks to the artists who built such fantastic structures and pieces. It was just, yeah, from the operations team perspective, it was just absolutely joyous that it all came together. With any survey, it's important to know how much you can trust it. So Tim and I did some research as to how you make sure that the data you're getting is of value and needs and can be trusted. So we found a complex formula that we then ignored, and then we found a nice online calculator where we put in our population size and that we wanted a 95% confidence level. So with the respondents we got, that we've got more than enough to be able to trust what the survey is telling us. Would we bet next year on it? I don't know. I think, you know, it's important to look at it in context. The more information that we have as a community, the better we can make decisions about 2023. You know, Tim and I and everyone else, we're not high-end data scientists. We're all artists and creatives. So, you know, it's not going to deliver, I think, the 20% less sand next year based on the results of this survey that I think everyone wants. And, you know, this data kind of flows between the whole organization, members and directors, and all the feedback data gets shared and everyone goes through it. And then that kind of shapes the direction and the support for the team going forwards. We haven't pulled every single question into this presentation for fear of boring you to tears. We've picked the most pertinent ones that everyone's been discussing. The kind of more vociferous feedback we got, it's really nice to hear, but if you actually really want to change things for 2023, it's quite easy. You volunteer and you apply to become a part of the organization. I think with this survey and this data, we also have to be aware that there are a kind of certain amount of barriers to take part in a 50-question online survey, boredom, access, language, etc. So we have to kind of see that these survey results are maybe more representative of an experienced burner who had half an hour to kill versus a more marginalized burner. But irrespective of all the results and the data we get, we absolutely guarantee that 2023 will be better than 2022. Again, yeah, just it was just amazing that we could all be there experiencing this after not having it for such a long time. With all the feedback, I think, you know, when we're there, we have fantastic times, and we also have traumatic times as well. So there's loads of comments and messages shared with us all from different perspectives. And then we've gone through and cherry-picked the ones we want to share. We've tried to be objective, but it is all subjective, and we've picked the ones that we think are more relevant than others, but all the comments get shared. So if you did take part in the survey and you don't see your input here, it doesn't mean that it's not valid or it hasn't been seen by the people who steer the ship to 2023. And yeah, so as a simple start, whoever's reading this, thank you for making AfrikaBurn possible. Brilliant. Hoping to build something fun and inspired next year. And I think this for us is the crux, is that the experience itself inspires people to do something fun next year. So it's this process, it's this journey going forward. It's not like a single event. Tim. We skimmed them all. Thanks. So, first timers this year, virgins were more than 20%. In reality, it's 100% because we were all virgins on Kwaggafontein. We were all figuring it out as we went along. But yeah, quite a reasonable percentage of people who filled in the survey were saying that it was their first time at AfrikaBurn. And it's a comment from someone, you know, with my first burn, I came unprepared, even though they thought they could imagine what it would be like. It was by far the best experience of my life. It changed so much to me, and I'm still feeding off the burn every day. Thank you so much. I will come back as often as I can, and I will give back. And I think this was also for us kind of representative of that. When you come for your first time, you're not a seasoned or experienced burner. You don't know everything. You don't have the 11 principles tattooed on your back yet. You're still figuring it out. But they came with a preconceived idea of what it was. They learned what it was, and now they've got it, and they're going to come back and they're going to be better next year, just as we all are. We asked people why they skipped 2022. It was nice that people skipped us because they actually don't like us, which is always good to know. Money is often cited as a challenge, I think, especially so post-pandemic. But we certainly had an RTN subsidised tickets available through the process. So we do have structures in place to mitigate this as an issue. And travel COVID, you know, it was a high risk decision to get a ticket to travel. You know, a couple of months ago, even, as much as here in South Africa, it feels like the pandemic's finished because we don't have to wear masks anymore. It was really right up until the last few weeks before the event that we had a sense of what we were and weren't going to be able to do within government restrictions. So a lot of people held back because of that. And a lot of people took a huge risk to join us as well. When it comes to the woke stuff, we'll just be thought sharing. This is the most popular post we've had the whole year on our social media channels, where we were talking about cultural appropriation, and it was just, yeah, it's wonderful to be part of a conversation like this that's happening, and to push people's buttons and push people's boundaries, because that's what we try and do on the ground as well. So totally unashamed about what we do and how we do it. We asked people where they were from. The ticket sales indicated that 45% of the participants were from overseas, but actually less than 20% of the people who responded on the survey were international. So that's where we noticed a bit of a discrepancy. And again, we asked, you know, is English your first language? And we can see the bias towards South African participants who filled in the survey. But even within that, it would appear that English is not a first language. And that was one of kind of our big realizations on the ground when it came to, you know, the 11 principles and MOOP and stuff. You know, we've been going on about the principles and integrating it into a lot of our messaging in the build up to the event. But for a lot of our participants, we kind of have to admit that with English as a second language, that a lot of those subtleties were lost. And so putting steps in place to mitigate that going forwards is one of our plans. Again, yes. Awesome. We asked people how old they are. And from the survey results, it was that there were as many 50 to 69-year-olds as there are 18 to 34-year-olds. So from a survey perspective, it's nice to get a good kind of representation of ages. But then Tim ran the ticketing data against the actual participants. And so what we see is that actually on the ground, that there were ever so slightly more 18 to 34-year-olds than any other age category, but not by much really. If you look at it, it's like 35% and 38%. So fairly balanced between those age groups. But yeah, obviously the 18 to 34, which is obviously exceptionally young, didn't necessarily want to fill in the form as much as the 35 to 49-year-olds did. We asked people about their ethnicity, and of those who said they were happy to give information, 80% said they were white. And you know, we really understand that we're still the kind of photo negative of South African society, but we believe we're moving in the right direction. It was interesting for us that there's like a 9% shift, which is quite a chunky shift in terms of representation between 2019 to 2022. So it's definitely moving in the right direction from our perspective there. So that was really nice to see. We asked people about their work status. Again, interesting that almost as many of us are self-employed as well as employed, and it's that kind of burner attitude, you know, that we are kind of a bit more radically self-reliant for our own incomes. And yeah, 11 people in our community considered themselves AfrikaBurn slaves. I suspect they were within the ops team or somewhere. Who put them there, so that's always good to see. We asked people about what channels they use in terms of finding out about AfrikaBurn. Interesting that Twitter was so low for us. Again, really nice to see Quackopedia, which replaced the survival guide, really moving up the charts. And yeah, the newsletters up there as well, which is great, even though it was much more entertaining to read when Travis was writing it. And then we've also got the AfrikaBurn website, which has been a challenge for us because it's quite outdated now, and we didn't really have the capacity to rebuild it from scratch. But the first thing as we got back within comms, as we got back from the event, was like, right, we've got this gap now. So we're focusing on rebuilding the afrikaburn.com website ahead of 2023, because we can see how important a resource it is for everyone. Yeah, we know what our problem children are. We're working on it. again, Quackopedia is the Wikipedia of AfrikaBurn, and I think it was a really important thing for us that we broke down the barriers around AfrikaBurn information, and that we got rid of a lot of gatekeeping in terms of what information filters out about AfrikaBurn. So we built an open wiki that anyone can register to be an editor on and update. And as Tim explained earlier, so what's happening from there is we basically ripped the survival guide and turned it into Quackopedia from a copy and paste perspective. And then we had there was about half a dozen of us kind of early editors who then started going through that content and updating it, all on a volunteer basis. And then as we started warming up towards the event, the updates got kind of more and more frequent. And we're now at a stage where we've had volunteers who are going to help translate it into German, Russian, Afrikaans, Klingon, whatever we want. So it's really exciting for us to see that the information around AfrikaBurn is becoming a bit more dynamic. And I suppose the example of that is where, you know, we had art crews coming up and down from Cape Town and Joburg continually, who we could talk to about what the road conditions were and how they were doing it and the best way to do it. And we were then able, their participants or the people who had actually driven the roads were then able to add that information into Quackopedia themselves. So, you know, it didn't have to come in and then, oh, well, you've got to wait for the next newsletter or next major website update to update the directions. It could happen on a daily basis. And in the week running up to the event, it was happening on a daily basis as more information came to light. We also asked people about their ticket experience. Again, you know, seeing anyone get scammed is absolutely heartbreaking. We put out as much comms as we possibly could in terms of warning people about Viagogo and all sorts of other kind of horrible operators, the amazing volunteers on the social channels, and the groups were like just blocking people on a daily basis. You know, in the beginning, around the ticket sales days, there was so many fake accounts coming on and trying to exploit our community, and we worked really hard to shut them down. But yeah, we were at a stage where Viagogo were running paid media on Google to be in a higher search position than the AfrikaBurn ticketing website, so that people would maybe get confused and click on that first. Tim. Yeah, it's an arms race. But again, the bulk of the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, even if it was a bit of a schlep. And again, you know, we were really lucky that we have kind of good partners like Quicket, who are long-term AfrikaBurners themselves, and they have a support team who could really help us through this process. So we're really grateful to them for helping out. We asked you to tell us a bit more. This one stuck out for us. I wish I had a darling boyfriend who bought a ticket for me, but some very clever person saw that they were sold out and that it was going to be difficult to get a ticket. So they signed up and volunteered to try and get a DDT. And that's how AfrikaBurn works. That's how you game the system. If you want a ticket, is you get more involved. Yeah, it was just so heartwarming to read the experiences that people had on the ground. Yeah, because it was never in doubt that we were going to do something, but we didn't quite know how it was going to come together. So it's just really lovely feedback, and yeah, we're really grateful for everyone who kind of took the time to give us their feedback. Oh, we asked about traveling to AfrikaBurn, and yeah, it was a lot of distance that was traveled. There's quite a carbon footprint in terms of the amount of fuel that was burnt to get to AfrikaBurn. That's a known quantity, and there was a section of the survey about mitigating that, and it's certainly something we've looked at and encouraged, and we'll look at going forwards. We added a section if anyone had cycled naked by bicycle. And Tim, how far was that?
I know exactly who did it. It was Skippers.
No, it wasn't Skippers. It was Isra. And Isra got in touch with us to do it as a fundraiser for AfrikaBurn when we were fundraising last year, and put it all together. And yeah, he came and did an interview on the radio, and as well as spoke at Chillers. And yeah, he's planning to do it again next year. I think he got a fright. We had to encourage him to wear a helmet at least. And I think it was a lot harder than he thought, but fascinating story, fascinating mental strength. Yeah, so he's looking to build a whole team of naked cyclists for next year. Again, with all the vehicles and the travel, just a huge thanks to everyone who brought a mutant, registered a mutant. They really shape Tanquetan. So we're just, as the whole team, just hugely grateful to everyone who brought their mutants along as well. We asked about the money that was spent en route. It's a bit of a crude capitalist question, but it's important to understand the context of what we bring to South Africa as an event. And yeah, 57 million rand spent en route by all the participants is a significant chunk of cash. Could probably fire up a generator or two at Eskom. Sorry, Tim. Yeah. And then we charted it out against the various towns. And yeah, driving into Ceres for me and seeing a chalkboard outside the garage saying "Welcome Africa Burn" was a lovely moment. I felt kind of really welcome in Ceres, and we can see how much AfrikaBurn means to the towns and communities in the Karoo, and that we add value to those areas, and that that's reciprocated, and there's gratitude around that. Was really nice to see, and an important contribution. We asked you to rate your experience on the roads. Again, we were expecting 1 star all the way, and maybe because we tell everyone how bad it is, and that's all we say is everything's gonna fall apart, that we set a low expectation of what the roads are like. Tim? Yeah, I mean, they'd been graded just before, but then when the rains came, they absolutely ripped it apart. And on the way out, I know it wasn't too easy for a lot of people, as the roads had been quite degraded by then, but it's a ongoing challenge in that area, but not for this bloke. We asked you about COVID-19. we were super anxious about it. And it was really heartwarming to see how, everyone kind of understood, we'd been living with it for a few years, so everyone was okay and jumped through the hoops to get through the gate. And we were certainly expecting it to be a lot more challenging at a gate and ticketing perspective, and everyone kind of got on board and did it and brought the certificates or the tests or whatever that they needed, and got through. So we were really pleased how that happened, particularly because the information was updated 2 weeks before the event. That was when we really knew what the COVID policy and what the requirements were going to be that the government issued towards us. We asked if you contributed towards the community, and yeah, overwhelmingly, almost 80% said yes, which is about 20% said no, but my optimistic mind says that's probably correlating with first-time visitors who will get it next year, and that they will then become part of the yes column. Again, nice quotes around people who brought things and then felt the love from the community. You don't have to build a bicycle-driven Pegasus to feel that gratitude and that interaction with people, but that the contribution factor is obviously what makes Tanquetown tick over. We asked if you volunteered. Just under half said yes, they did. The actual amount of slots on the ground for volunteer slots are obviously a bit lower, but I think it's also important that a lot of people volunteer beyond kind of just signing up at the volunteer booth in Tanquetown. Again, lovely to see that the bulk of people felt empowered by the volunteering experience, because it's the foundation of what we do. There was some limited feedback. People felt that their hours were being marked, but it was really an absolute minority of feedback from people who didn't get value from the volunteering experience. And yeah, again, the comments were great and important to share. And yeah, it's not about hard labor, it's about growing your network and interacting with others, and being taken out of your kind of usual default world paradigm. That's the feeling that it gives you. That's actually the Swarm art performance project. That was wonderful to see. Tanquetown, if you missed it. And again, another comment. So impressed how the whole thing is basically volunteer run. The profound ethos that underpins it all, the creativity and generosity and impermanence. And again, that's lovely when people kind of get it and see it, and that the volunteers are seen and recognised for the work that they put in. We asked for the first time in a while if you were part of a camp or collective that offered provisions or support in exchange for a camp fee. And we were kind of trying to sniff out plug and play camps a bit here. But yeah, if just because you paid a fee to a camp, our camp, we paid a fee, I think it was 600 Rand, but we certainly weren't plug and play. So we're not saying that 20% of the camps were plug and play. We're just trying to get a sense of what's happening in that area. And when people gave us the feedback in terms of how much it cost to join their camp, it was, we were quite taken aback as to how expensive some of the camps were in terms of participating. Again, we estimate that the total spent by participants just to be in a camp or just to camp was about 4.5 million, which is quite a chunk of cash. We asked people what they got for their money. And again, it was going through the comments, it's a bit of detective work and trying to figure it out. But, if you have food and you get together and you organize your water and your stretch tent and you rotate shifts and it's all open expenses and spreadsheet and super transparent, then that's not really plug and play. But then other comments was like, well, I got food and shower, but I didn't get shade structure, I didn't get water, didn't get this, didn't get that, but I did put up my own tent. That really looks like me to be a plug and play scenario. We had quite a few emails come through, and it was almost like being on the support desk for booking.com, because it was, you know, well, I paid this and then my tent wasn't as was promised, and I had to camp in the sun, and you promised X amount of space and this and that. And so there was definitely, it was definitely happening within Tanquetown. We asked you to talk to us about it. And again, I think what was so lovely about this is that our community, the participants, actually kind of get it and understand it. You know, it's not pitchforks and shouty. It's actually, okay, I understand that the demand is probably coming from foreigners who, you know, don't want to land and spend and then buy stuff and then necessarily throw it away or make it disposable. So there was some really good suggestions about how to get foreign participants more on board with the 11 principles and not to be reliant on plug and play scenarios. But I think it's also, you know, we mustn't be fooled that it's not an issue because some people made a lot of money off the back of the hard work of others, and as an organization it's very frustrating when we're rebuilding and you know, we have to operate in the default world to provide the services on the ground in Tanquetown, to have other people profiteering off the hard work that we put in and profiteering off the ticket money, that the hard-earned ticket money that our participants put in, is certainly something we're looking at. And you know, the whole team, the ops team perspective, you know, it was something we discussed quite intensely, and are going to be working on figuring out a solution. But it's an aggressive capitalistic arms race, basically, and money is the root of all plug and play camp evil. So unless we can operate in a system without money, it's going to be an ongoing battle. Again, there was, I don't know if anyone noticed on the map, but there was a VIP section marked out. That was Tim, who is part of DCamp, trying to highlight that AfrikaBurn does not have VIP areas as part of our plug and play education program. It probably incensed more people than we've had in a while. We had a few emails of people who were very cross about the VIP area, and yeah, I think it was a wonderful it was a very good prank. Yeah, no, they're banned, so there's no VIP camps allowed. So Tim and DCamp.
And if you got there at the right time, I said, and if you got there at the right time, they would have caught you in your gown.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a VIP experience. Yeah, and again, all the theme camps, just huge gratitude from us as the ops team. You know, the theme camps are also, you know, just the foundation of the experience, and plans had been on hold for years. We had no idea who, how and what was going to turn up till it started happening. So all the theme camps that came and participated, just huge gratitude from us as a ops team, as well as as a participant as well. Just a huge thank you. They were brilliant, absolutely blew us all away. We asked if you brought children to the burn, and it was quite a lot less than 2019. It was about 11% in 2019. So there were a lot fewer children on site. I don't know if that was virus related or just hesitancy or tickets, but yeah, I mean, there was still plenty of children on the ground, and you know, it's something we encourage, that the space is a family space, so we'd like to see that creep back up next year, I suppose, as hopefully more tickets become available. We asked if you used the WTF booklet. I was quite sad that not everyone got one, because we put so much love and effort into it. We're definitely going to print more in 2023. 3% said it was more effective as toilet paper. I think that was Tim as well when I checked the IP address. So he's also banned in 2024 for his aggressive critique. Again, we asked everyone what the overall impressions were of artwork, burns, mutant vehicles, stages, sound rigs, tech theme camps, etc. And yeah, hugely validating for us, but I hope also for all the participants and all the people who did theme camps and mutant vehicles and artworks, that everything was just amazing according to the survey. So really pleased to see that. Again, there were other areas where people obviously weren't expected to interact as much, where they provided no answer, but even then, you know, they're on the amazing side in terms of ranking. DPW got its highest score ever, and they were just great and wonderful and lovely, and we were so grateful for all the hard work they put in before, during and after the event. But they obviously hacked the survey again if they're getting that good a mark. They're doing something wrong, because if we're not fearful of them, then they're doing something wrong. But yeah, great and ticketing, all good. Again, looking at things like the harm reduction team not having interactions, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is to be debated, I would say. And again, iSales lovely as well, and so much nice feedback around people's interactions there and how much fun they had. Someone even left a nice comment about DPW, and someone made the grave mistake of actually straying into DPW, which is the most dangerous thing I think anyone can do in Tanquetown, and had a lovely reception and response. And yeah, I just from our team's perspective, you know, everyone was just so amazing, and just there was so much kind of love and care for each other, having got through the past few years to get on the ground. Tim? Okay. Definitely. In other areas, you know, where what we see is that there are areas where people then didn't respond because they didn't interact with it, but where or when people did interact, it most definitely was amazing as well, which is really nice to see. And as Tim said, you know, the throne crew, third from bottom. I don't know, the 50% who didn't interact with the throne crew probably were highly constipated and didn't use the bathroom for the whole week. and they are those wonderful objects. And again, the loo cleaners were singled out as well in terms of, you know, gratitude to everyone who makes this event happen, and the shit stirring loo cleaners are the biggest heroes of all. And yeah, it's just so nice that kind of everyone within the organization gets celebrated for the work that they do. Now we're on to the more contentious stuff from social. We asked people what they thought of the music in Tanquatown. And yeah, 53% said they loved it. They heard lots of great music, and that's cool. This always makes me chuckle because we don't decide what music gets played at AfrikaBurn. It's not a music festival. The participants decide what music gets played. So I suppose it's surprising if you don't, if you're kind of complaining about too much duff that you're not curating your own music. And I think what we find is that a lot of people come there like, oh, it was way too much duff. It's like there was way too much psytrance years and years ago. And then they come in and they're like, right, well, I'm going to play my music that I want to. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, right, I'm definitely doing a sound camp next year because I didn't hear as much of what I wanted this year. And it's lovely that it kind of inspires that constant change and that constant movement. Yeah, and again, just kind of really grateful to all the DJs and sound crews and sound rigs and everything for bringing all that equipment and taking all that effort. You know, people do this out of love. We don't pay them. We don't do anything other than support them to kind of build their visions and their dreams. And it's just so lovely to see it when it all comes together. How are the noise levels? Essentially with this, you've got kind of 2 positive responses and 2 negative responses. And I personally, having been on the social channels, was expecting it to be the other way around, but we were quite surprised that kind of pretty much 70% of the feedback was that the noise levels were good. So yeah, definitely a bit lower than expected, than we thought. Again, we kind of, just because it was 70% positive and 30% doesn't mean that we're like, okay, well, great, sounds sorted. We're just gonna let it do its thing. We still go through all the comments and read everything in detail and take into consideration all the feedback, and that will definitely inform the plans for 2023. You know, but again, you know, we need those volunteer sound rangers to step up as well. You know, we need, if you struggled with it and you want the sound to change, there are opportunities to be part of the crew that does that. And you know, it's a great volunteer opportunity and a great service to the whole community. Tim? Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, it's certainly, a lot of people had kind of very strong experiences around sound, and it's not to minimize that. And we have talked a bit about mobile sound rigs and where they face and how they face, you know, and that was something that we would certainly like to improve on. So I think, you know, we're not saying fuck you if you didn't like the noise. We're saying we're kind of taking on board all the feedback, and we're going to make sure it's better whether you like the noise or it was too much. I guarantee you there'll be better quiet zones next year compared to this year. Tim? Okay, cool. So yeah, you know, and again, good feedback. People are like, you know, we're not a music festival. This isn't Oppikoppi. You know, there's lots of different experiences that people are looking for and that they're going to shape. And we try to cater to as many of those experiences as possible. But yeah, everyone with regards to their perception or their experience of sound has been heard and filtered, and it will definitely go through to all the teams who put Tanquatown together. We asked you if you used any of the other service providers, and again, great. We don't want you to be experiencing the medics or the fire safety people. So, you know, we're looking at that no answer as a positive sign. One person said that the VOC, which is often mistaken with the double-decker bus, was crap, and we suspect that's the person who didn't have a good enough excuse to get Wi-Fi. You know, there is no Wi-Fi signal on site, but for emergencies, we do allow a certain small amount of Wi-Fi on our system, and we had a wonderful range of stories and excuses, some legitimate, but others were some fairly tall tales. But I mean, you said you had like hundreds and hundreds of people online on site. Yeah, actually, but yeah, please don't tell anyone that there's any Wi-Fi or signal on site, because there isn't, for all intents and purposes. Yeah. Or Jasper. We also asked if you lost some property this year, and this is quite a challenge for participants, because there's a time frame as to when you wake up the next morning without something that you left with the night before. And did I just drop it? Has it gone missing? Should I give it a few days for it to turn up in lost and found? There's this kind of time frame as you kind of try and piece together what the hell just happened to you. And again, it was quite encouraging to see that most people looked after their stuff and didn't lose any property, but a lot of people partied too hard and then got their stuff back. But for others, stuff did go missing and they're not sure how, why, and for other people's stuff did go missing and they reported it to the wonderful Justine here. So we asked a bit more about lost stolen property, and there were a few themes that cropped up here. The first one was that lots of shoes went missing, which is something we'd not really seen too much before. And what happened at one stage was that a participant actually reported that something was stolen. And I think that's the most important thing for us, is that we act on the ground as and when stuff is reported to us. A lot of people or participants were unsure, then got home and then decided stuff was stolen. It makes it very hard for us to figure out what's going on. When we were talking to the super duper event guardians, you know, they had a perception that there was almost zero theft on the ground because they had very little actually reported to them. But we were quite pleased that we were able to kind of get to the bottom of one of the cases of theft where someone actually came and reported it. They were able to track the theft to one of the suppliers who was on site, and then it was then removed, returned, and then the thief was removed from site. And so we've actually entered into a process with all the suppliers who come onto site and engaging with them about how we figure this out in the future. So that's not that every case of theft was a supplier or not, we certainly don't know that, but we're putting steps in place to make sure that this doesn't happen, because yeah, it's certainly not something that has been such a strong issue. So we were certainly surprised about how much feedback there was around theft this year, as much as sound. But we're also pleased that we were able to figure out a way to start tackling it and dealing with it. We asked if you noticed the impact of AfrikaBurn mechanisms to foster diversity and inclusion. Again, great that people recognise it, but also really nice that almost 20% have personally benefited from those mechanisms as well. And again, that's an increase, so that more and more people are benefiting from the mechanisms that are being put in place. And yeah, here's lovely Cindy, who's in on this call. Again, just comments like this make my heart sing. Thanks so much for creating this. A 69-year-old virgin, alone and bewildered, and then they discover chillers, and then just like that, AfrikaBurn became the magic place I hoped it would be. So that was just so nice to read. We asked if people were aware that a portion of their ticket cost goes to social initiatives. It doesn't all go on holidays in Mauritius. Now you do know that it does go to social initiatives, and you know, we were really chuffed to see from Collexodus kind of quite how many tins of beans and long life milk there were that we were able to pass on to the school at Elandsvlei. And yeah, I mean, that lasts them a whole year, and they haven't had the benefit of the Collexodus donations for a couple of years. So, you know, we just had really lovely messages from them, and yeah, just really chuffed that our community does this. We don't just go and get trashed in the desert, we also do good. How the following statements reflect our participants' point of view. You know, everyone should be familiar with the 10 principles. It's all a lot of agreement around, you know, ticket sales should be limited, participants vetted. We do that already anyway. It's fine that people who attend do not volunteer, maybe a bit more vague. I invest a lot of time and effort. That's universal truth. Also nice to hear that for a lot of people, AfrikaBurn is a year-round activity, and you know, that kind of notion of a work in progress is really important, particularly when it comes to first-timers. And there was a lot of perception and reality in terms of on the ground that there was more MOOP maybe than previous years, but a lot of us had to kind of refamiliarize ourselves to things that should be second nature. And I think it comes back to the fact that there was a lot of virgins in town who might not necessarily be first language English either. And it's not our responsibility as operations team to impart that knowledge to everyone, you know, and it was just lovely to see the community step up and help educate others as well. And I definitely believe that by the end of the week, that the bulk of participants were much more up to speed with the 11 principles than they were on the Monday. So it's just really nice to have kind of everyone getting on board and spreading the message and not being passive about it in Tanquetown. The cost of a ticket is minimal in comparison to the cost of participating. That's an absolute truth. Positively profile South African people, I hope so. I experienced empowering moments. Again, lots of nice, strong agreement. Hardly anyone experienced harassment from people around them. I was personally impacted negatively by the behaviour of individuals at AfrikaBurn. Again, way more towards the disagreeing with that statement, but I did kind of notice that it was about 20% up there. So it's a little bit higher than we'd like, and we'd have to look at ways of changing that in the future. But yeah, on the other side of that, in terms of being impacted positively, it's very much strongly agree. So that's a huge amount. The event certainly challenged a lot of people, and yeah, wonderful. 74% had a lot of fun, and that's what we're that's what we're all about. This was another lovely comment. AfrikaBurn was one of the safest environments I had experienced as a woman. It was incredibly liberating not to feel preyed upon whilst wearing exactly what I wanted. That safety then allowed me to roam and soak up the art, the messages, and the surrounding nature. And we're just really pleased to be able to create an environment like that for our participants. How does it reflect your point of view? My life's been changed. I define myself as a burner. I'm part of the community outside of the event. We're doing something worthwhile. Fantastic, really lovely to hear that. There's the wonderful ego booth that we're going to need to check in all our egos after all this lovely feedback from our participants. Was Tanquetown big enough for you? This was an equal tie. Again, we're not in 2019 anymore, and I don't know that we will be next year either. But it was nice that, you know, people felt it was a really good amount of people. I mean, that's over 80% said it was good, but with a few more participants next year, about 15% want double. Hardly anyone wants fewer. So yeah, it's definitely going to be bigger next year, but it's unlikely to be double. But again, different opinions for different people. Everyone wants it to be bigger and better. Someone said, what, 15 next year? That's going to be quite a stretch for us. 20,000 after. Again, yeah, I don't know that the volume of people is how we measure our impact. Sorry, Tim. Sounds good. We asked if anyone would be interested in an Equinox event in October. I think as an ops team, we were absolutely filled with post-event euphoria when we asked this question as well. But we've always kind of done decompression events and didn't do one this year purely simply because of capacity. It would have just been, I think we'd have broken everyone internally if we had to push straight through and then go on to another event a few weeks later. But we're certainly looking seriously at an Equinox event. We're all meeting as a large group on Thursday to discuss things like this, and we'll let you know in due course. But yeah, we're not giving you AfrikaBurn twice a year at this stage, but you never know. Symmetry. We thought we'd share a little bit about the public health cases. It was interesting for us, you know, people weren't allowed on site without the vax certificate or a negative test. So we started with, I suppose, a net zero of COVID cases on site. And particularly in the beginning of the week, we had a fright. Well, not a fright, we were aware of 1 or 2 gastro cases on site. And that was probably a larger concern for us as an ops team after the 2017 shitstorm that I still can't talk about. So we were interested that, you know, South Africa as a nation was testing positively at 22% in that specific week of the event. So we probably should have had a few more higher ones. The cases started cropping up, obviously, towards the end of the week. It's normal to assume that people who might have been feeling a bit iffy would have held out for longer rather than rushing to get tested or being ill. So I think what we found is that a lot of people reported that they tested positive for COVID after leaving the site. But it certainly, I think, because of the COVID protocols in place, wasn't a super spreader event like Plet Rage or anything else. But yeah, again, surprisingly low, that there were only kind of just over double figures in terms of identified COVID cases on site in Tanquetown by the time we all went home on Monday. Again, we had feedback. Great to hear that the ladies who fetched someone who tested positive were lovely, but concern around the protocol of dropping someone off at the gate. You know, we had this policy that if someone tested positive, they would isolate and then they would need to quarantine and go somewhere where they could recover, basically, from COVID. And yeah, the people who did test positive and had come on a bus or with someone else and couldn't get home, we did set them up at a camp by the gate, but there was shelter, water, toilet, fire, and food, and a shuttle to Cape Town, and the security team right there. So we weren't kind of penalising anyone who tested positive for COVID, but our interests were to make sure that they were isolating as effectively as possible. So last comment, which I think sums it all up: bestow sainthood on all volunteers, pay staff more, at least double, I reckon, shoot moopers on the spot, install Kwakafontein openers in the AfrikaBurn Hall of Fame, and fantastic venue. So it's a lovely one to read. We've set the dates for next year. It will be from the 25th to the 30th of April. Yeah, and tickets will go on sale in August-ish, late August, early September, depending on how things go. But we'll let you know in the Bard skid. And yeah, and that's it. Just a big thanks to everyone here, but also everyone who took the brave steps into a new Tankwa town. Thanks to those who filled in the survey. Thanks to Tim for all his hard work, all the photographers who shared their images with us, and yeah, the whole team for doing the best AfrikaBurn ever. Cool. And so now we're ready for some of your questions. I think, Bash, I'm going to stop sharing.
Let's do this. All right, great. Thank you very much, Brian and Tim, on that. That was great to find out all that information in such a short space of time. What we have here are a few questions, well, 2 questions and 2 comments. What I'll do is I'll ask for, the first one is Joel Brand, who asked a question. If you could unmute yourself and give us your comments.
Wasn't so much a question, it feels a little, I don't know, we've crossed so much ground since I made it, but I just was thinking about the scammers. As a first-time burner, I felt like you guys did a great job of articulating the proper channel to buy tickets. And we live in a society where there's lots of scamming, and you'll never get it to zero. And for a resource-challenged organization like you guys, I feel like, you know, you guys did a great job, and I'm not sure I'd put a lot more effort into that. Thank you.
No, thanks, Joel, for mentioning that, as well as I know that it might sound like everybody's comment questions is late in this town hall, but this is just a session that for everybody to give the questions and answers. Next is Ray with both a question for 2 questions.
Hey,
Ray. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Bash. Yeah, 2 questions unrelated to each other, so if you could just get 2 separate answers. The one is, I've got a lot of mates outside of South Africa who are really keen to come next year. How do we avoid, or are there guidelines that I can send them to avoid the plug and play trap that they may fall into, in quotation marks? That's the one question. And the second one is bicycles. It seemed this year there were a number of bicycles stolen, one of which was myself. I know Martin Coetzee at La Petite Paris lost as well. Was there any investigation or just getting any insights into what happened around bicycles, or any particular numbers? We've got an insurance claim and it's all sorted out now, but we'd just really like to know if there's any trend or information that came up around bicycle losses or theft in particular.
I mean, with the plug and play, there is information on the current site and around ticketing, but it's probably hidden like 3 layers in to what is an outdated website now. So it's certainly something we're going to bring forwards, so it's more visible to participants, as opposed to just relying on social media or newsletters to get that information out. And that whole kind of onboarding process is something we're definitely working on enhancing. But yeah, it is important. It's just so hard for foreign participants coming, Africa, the perception when you live overseas is that everything wants to kill you. So, they're trying to minimize risk. So we understand why the desire is there, but we're hoping that through education we can get it. And so many people were kind of taken advantage of, not so many, those that did do plug and play and were taken advantage of have kind of since come back to us and said, I'm never doing it again this way. I know how to do it properly now. So they kind of got on board. It's a pity they had to be exploited to discover that, but they do get it when they're on the ground. Sorry, Mums.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a policy, and we've got kind of like a way that we deal with them, but it definitely needs reviewing. And we actually call them plug, play and profit camps, because very often it's not necessarily, there's such a kind of broad taxonomy of what can go on there, because very often people associate, it's quite a hard thing to deal with, because people will associate, for example, luxury with plug and play. Whereas if you have generated your own luxury, that's okay. If you and your friends have put that stuff up, it's totally okay. Whereas when people see comfort, they go, oh, that must be a plug and play. And so there's a lot more kind of nuance and stuff that we have to navigate. And, we've got a theme camp committee who deal with kind of the various, we parcel out kind of dealing with various camps. And then we also do rely on the community to alert us to what they think are potential plug and plays. Another issue is that very often when there's a high camp fee, people also assume that's a plug and play. I'm just telling you the kind of like problematic kind of scenarios, because it's not an easy thing to deal with. So very often, like, for example, when people have got a high camp fee, it's because their gift is a very expensive gift. They've got to pay for the tents and the sound system and the like decor and the food and the showers and all that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of centralizing, which has become the problem. So we've got scenarios where we actually require people to show us their financials. That's kind of like in the plug and play thing, and in the theme camp sign up. And so, but it's definitely not a perfect science. We constantly muddling through it, and we seem to go on a bit of a curve. Sometimes we put in a lot of energy into it, and then we win, and then the next year there's just a sharp uptick, and we've even gone so far as to ban people before. So, who after repeated meetings with them and kind of discussions around how like this is not what you need to do, especially in the South African scenario, where you see a whole lot of kind of underpaid people of color putting up tents, it's a little bit jarring. It's a little bit very jarring. But then on the flip side of that, we've also had the interesting scenario where we've had a camp which was very much a 50-50 in terms of demographics, and people kept reporting them as plug and play because they saw people of color setting up and they didn't think that they were necessarily participants. So it's a bit of it's a quagmire, and particularly in the South African scenario, it's very peculiar kind of issues. But I actually have been working with Shay from Burning Man, and we are going to be putting our heads together on their approaches, our approaches, because obviously they're kind of like Burning Man's uptick on plug and plays was much larger than ours has been. We've been kind of like holding the door closed, but then some's kind of slipped through. So really it is just a case of a much higher level of engagement with these camps and people. But in terms of foreigners, like I've been a foreigner that has gone to Burning Man, and I'm lucky because I have friends in San Francisco, and then you drive around and you fetch a tent from this one, and you fetch a mattress from that one, and a pillow from that one, and a water bottle from that one. And certainly it's not that comfortable, but it can be done, like, so we're having a radical look at that. Is like, because just because you're coming from overseas, it doesn't mean you have to arrive to this completely comfortable scenario. The event is not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to rub up against you. So, but one of the things that we have kind of queried, that we've got a little kind of like asterisk next to, that we want to look at is that huge amount of people towards very close to when the event starts going like, hey, happy people from so and so there and there, I'm good at this and that and looking for a camp, and people see opportunity in that, and that's very often where you get a profit camp where they provide the absolute bare minimum for a camp fee, give no offering to the community, and usually the participants are a little bit, so there's a whole chunk of education that needs to be generated around for the people who are looking for camps, and pushed kind of distinctly. So that is definitely a piece of work. So if you have any ideas around that and kind of getting that feedback from people who've done that, who've been from overseas and come and had that experience, we've certainly had a lot of them. We kind of have to then go into them. But we, kind of twiddling the knobs on our policies is where we are now, and working out the rollout. The other big thing to consider is that it takes a hell of a lot of human contact. And we were radically understaffed this year, even though we've got lots of volunteers, etc. But our capacity to have an incredibly high touch interaction with all the creative teams and all that kind of stuff was very challenging. But we also, our supply process usually, we'll see inventories coming in, and you can kind of see where luxury goods are starting to come in, and so it's, the irony is that the taproot of this thing of this thing that we do is in anarchy, and we end up being the kind of the force that are like watching and looking and trying to kind of, but really we are just trying to kind of protect our culture. And really the broader interrogation is around, what are the core elements that keep this thing pure, that will make that space that we create still do the work that it does in the world, and not slide down the slippery slope into default world service provision kind of action. And so that's the thing that we need to do. Brian, would you mind taking the bicycles question? I've
Sure.
abdicated from the whole bicycle scenario.
Amazing. With the bicycles, again, there's that time period when has someone just borrowed it, because that's certainly happened to me a few times, or has it been stolen? And then towards the end of the event, the security team was definitely watching and checking vehicles as they were leaving, because a bike's quite a big, bulky thing, and people have bike. We were kind of looking for people who had more bikes really on the back than people in the car, as it were, and there was kind of nothing flagged from there. But and I suppose to us we're still trying to, we can only assume that they were taken off site during the event rather than towards the end of the event, because they're big. There wasn't like a huge pile of bikes left at the end that was in lost and found that people could go claim, and we didn't on the main leaving day see cars filled with 20 bikes either, and we certainly weren't doing like a stop and go with that as well. So yeah, where the bike thefts were,
but bicycles will get lost, things will happen. I guess for me was there perception, or was it just a perception that this year more bicycles were taken than normal, or were, from the reports that you've got, were the numbers relatively consistent with what we'd see year on year in a community that size, where Africa burns better than the rest of the world, but not perfect?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. Yeah, bikes were stolen because they didn't turn up in lost and found, so people did take bikes home with them. But it wasn't, from the reports we had, it wasn't that there was a huge epidemic of it from our side. Tim?
the other thing is that people need to lock their bikes, actually, because there's obviously you got a much smaller event, but we did a huge communications drive a little while ago for people like, listen, lock your bikes. You do it at Burning Man, and because of that, because I mean, we want to be generous and not think that every bike theft is sinister, but because it's you know, it's that kind of free environment. In fact, funny enough, someone stole my art car this year. I had to go sprinting down after I was like in the Twisted Saloon, and I looked out and just see my car disappear. So I sprinted after it like it was 1988, and just as I was losing ground, a security guy came running up behind me and overtook and stopped the guy. And he was just like, yeah, but it's AfrikaBurn, I can take what I want. And the security guy was like, no. Theft at Tankwa Town is also theft in the default world. What are you doing? Anyway, luckily I got my car back. And then I started taking the key out of the ignition. Totally, yeah, that's true. I have to say, actually, yeah, let me just punt to Toyota here. I mean, not to be commodified or anything, but that car sat for 3 years because it got locked up after 2019. We put a new battery in, turned the engine, and it worked again. It was absolutely amazing. Bash, do we have more questions?
Yes, we do. Let me just get into that now. So what we have here are really just comments. First from Ida. And she says, I called people out for complaining on years on end about sound and not doing shit to create change around it. It's absolutely ludicrous that people feel entitled to have SAPS police Tankwa for sound. Please have the moderators, admins on social media actively shut that idea down. So I think that was more in the part of the reply in the sound or soup in that case, which then leads on to a very important question then afterwards by Yolanda, who if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi everyone, hi Mons and everyone. Thank you from my side also for pulling this off. I got to take my 72-year-old mom for the first time to AfrikaBurn, and it was just a dream come true. I'm really happy that I could share it with her after the fuck show of 2020, when I was originally going to take her. So my question, I mean, if you could elaborate a bit on what was the actual music time policy? I think it's supposed to be that music can be played until 4 a.m., but that was clearly not the case. We were camped on the first or second street of the quiet zone, and I mean we could very clearly hear music until 7, 8 or 9 a.m. sometimes. Luckily, my mom and her boyfriend could sleep. I mean, I was like really grateful. They didn't even need their earplugs. It was more me. So that was my first question: is what is the actual policy? And also, I understand it's very hard to police it properly if there aren't enough hands. So hey, maybe next time I will be a ranger for sound police, because and I know this is a big debate, or for at least a lot of people, that is this a music festival? But it's not a music festival, and I think actually I don't know if you have figures on it, how many people would like to sleep from at least 3 a.m. and then is it fair that there are camps that are making it impossible to sleep?
So I think what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of the kind of policy background and the approaches, etc. And then maybe Android, I don't know if he's still on the call, can jump in, because he did a hell of a lot of the kind of, he's our lead ranger who had to deal with a hell of a lot of the sound complaints. But so I mean, the one thing that we absolutely knew this year is that we were going to school, because we don't know how the new town layout was going to work. We didn't know how it was, excuse my language, fucking hectic actually trying to work shit out. And also, you know, again, and thank you for being generous, because around our lack of capacity. So what we've always done in the past, so we've got a sound policy, and it's elastic. Did you see that, Brian? I used the word elastic. Because we do respond to feedback. We always respond to feedback. But very often feedback, like people's ideas, will actually be changed when they hear what the actual approach is, etc. And look, sound is a very particularly difficult piece of participation to police, in inverted commas, because, you know, if you don't like something, you don't have to look at it, you don't have to engage with it. Whereas sound is the thing that travels. One of our sound engineers was just like, yeah, I mean, if you don't like it, it's like having someone come and clap you in the ear with a hammer, you know, which is not nice. But it's also, we've also got to honor that it's a very important piece of participation, you know. And so I mean, I do think that one of the challenges that which is an evolution and hangover from what we did in the early days, was calling certain areas a quiet zone. And obviously you're always going to have a crossover. It's actually just going to, it's quiet-ish, you know. It's just like you're going to be a certain distance away from sound systems. But basically in the policy, we talk about speaker directions, we talk about sound, we do a whole curatorial thing when we are doing placement in the town layout. We do all that kind of thing. And it's not a perfect science, because someone who says they are bringing that size sound system all of a sudden brings a bigger one. And so again, we were undercapacitated, but I also think Rikus, who is in our theme camp committee, is the poor elected person who deals with sound camps on site. But it's not only sound camps, it's artworks, and it's mutant vehicles. And so we have a policy, and the switch off is from 4 in the morning till 7 in the morning, till 11 in the morning. But that's for the most part of the week. It's Monday to Thursday, and then we want to honor that some people just need a blowout jaw the whole weekend. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday is like, there's no limit on the times, except for the burning of the temple. And I have to say that I still think it's absolutely phenomenal that we are able to switch our entire city off for the burning of the temple. And just a side note is that it was an experiment this year to have a track play the moment the first spire fell on the temple, and then it started the one track. But so we, again, one of our issues was that we were undercapacitated. What we have done before is once we shut down registrations, it's required for anyone who's bringing a sound camp to AfrikaBurn to attend a sound meeting. And that's where we do a face-to-face, because there's one thing about sending a document and a map to someone, but when you're face-to-face with everybody and you make agreements and then people start talking to each other and they work out whether they can daisy chain together. And there's a whole lot of stuff around, you know, facing your mutant vehicle away from the town, and checking in with the artist if they're okay to have a big joel at their artwork, making sure that they move the area after they've had a big party there. You know, there's loads and loads of things. This year we weren't able to have that face-to-face meeting. And so it was quite nerve-wracking. I knew that there were going to be knock-on effects from that. The other thing that we had was we placed certain camps in certain areas, because they said, well, we're only going to play from, you know, 4-ish till 11-ish, and then kind of got power drunk and played until 4 a.m. every morning, you know. And it happens. And I think poor Android like visited the one camp about 1 million times, you know. The other thing was that we only had one sound ranger this year. So, and we used to have a team of at least 3 who were there when people were setting up their, and making eye contact and conversing, etc. But also the other things that you're never quite sure that the communications, the lead who's come to the meeting or got the pieces of information is necessarily passing that on to, you know, your international DJ, who thinks that turning the volume up is the way to attract more people to your dance floor. So again, that's, you know, we have taken all that feedback, and we're gonna get all the sound engineers, etc., back on board, and make us, you know, and we are actively recruiting sound rangers just around the setup. So it's not a police style scenario, It's very much a gentle interaction. It's just like inviting people to curate that space together. And then genres are just a whole other story, but you know, I can't even talk about that because it's just, we can't get involved in that on that level, you know. But certainly we do on a funding level get involved, and we go strategically, we want to support more live music and more diversity of music, etc. So those kinds of proposals will get funding, whereas others won't. I don't know if that helps you, Landy.
Nice, thanks. No, that's it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Danny?
Hi, Yolandi. I remember you from Chillers. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
I mean, one of the things that I saw post AfrikaBurn 2019 was that you did a MOOP assessment at the end, where you said to people they were red, yellow, green, or orange. Are you going to do that this year?
Yeah, we've got it drawn in Koki in the office. It just needs to be followed up on. Basically, again, it's a capacity issue. We've got it. We did the swoop, and we've got the kind of hand drawn thing. But what we also need to do is follow up with all the camps, and the before we actually publish a proper MOOP map. We like to check in with because it really does affect people. So because very often what happens is that someone will have cleaned their site, before the MOOP team goes through, it gets, and if they haven't had it signed off, because some people didn't have their site signed off, the you know, other people will dump stuff, or a wind will come through and deposit stuff on. So people get very emotionally involved because it affects their assessment of good standing. And the good standing is really a set of things to just reflect on, kind of like, were these people, was this collective or this gift, you know, did it take up too much of our our organizational resources? You know, was it a MOOP site? Was, you know, because then we won't give them placement again, you know, or prime placement on the Binnekrung. So, but yeah, we will be doing that. And then the other thing that we started this year is that we started the green map. So Dom walked around the town and did a assessment of how many people were using renewables for their camps.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is because it might be worth, sure, and this is hard to assess, but your social amplification on Facebook and Instagram might be an indication, is that you may want to assess camps on the sound MOOP that they left behind, going forward. You know, I mean, it was I actually don't know the names of the camps, but it was on our side, which were particularly loud, you know, that even though there wasn't, you know, even there wasn't a sound training verification session, etc., you know, you have to be able to say to them, there were numerous indications this last year that you guys were way over and above at 4 o'clock in the morning in terms of sound. And if you want to come back next year, you need to curtail or step back quite radically from where you were.
So Danny, that's what happens in our good standing assessment. We don't do a published map because the thing is that with sound, it's so much a matter of opinion.
Oh no,
you know,
no, I know
for you
that.
who were trying to sleep, there were another like 80 people thumping their tits off on that dance floor, having a jolt, you know.
No, I know that.
So that's why we won't publish a soup map. We've talked about soup sound out of place.
I think they're one-on-one. They're definitely one-on-one.
So it's a one-on-one kind of, exactly. So for example, we've got you know, the one thing that keeps happening is that like mutant vehicles, even though like on the sound map, which we issue to mutant vehicles, and there's a big red thing around the temple which says, do not make a party at the temple. There's a fucking party happening. Because it's like, what part of do not set up a jewel at the temple did you not get? Anyway, so those, and that's just, you know, like you can communicate up the gazoo and stand on your head and whistle through your ass, and some people just don't get it because someone else is driving the car, else is the boss of it for that day, because the poor lead needs a rest, you know. Anyway, so that's just a personal interaction with all these camps, and we do log that in our good standing stuff. And then when they try and apply again, we go, listen, yeah, but thanks. Melanie?
So firstly, I'd like to thank the org for a great job. I appreciate what you deliver year after year. I'm so thankful I can go back every year and my friends are all there. So thank you for that. Then I have heard you say many times throughout this conversation that the org is struggling with capacity. How can the community support you?
We need shit tons of volunteers, and we need reliable people who've got some time and time resources to plug in. The other thing is that, because the thing is that we do have a lot of volunteers, but there's a difference between the all year round volunteering and in terms of the org stuff. So we've got art committees, we've got theme camp committees, we've got communications committees, you know, and having people put up their hands to help with that, but actually having a longer term view to assist with that. Because the thing is that onboarding someone is a hell of a lot of work. So for example, we've got like 17 volunteers on the art committee, and we've had a fair bit of turnover, but we've always got the old guard who are so good at onboarding, you know, the new guard, and then we have subcommittees, you know, the theme team and the clan team and this, and it really does help us tremendously. Ideally, we need to be able to get more staff on, because it's not small fry. We really do. I mean, we are all very close to breaking point. You know, that triumph and exhaustion combination is not sustainable, and it's, you know, endemic. That kind of endemic overwork makes it, you know, it's challenging. So yeah, we need more financial resources, and we need more volunteers, and we need more staff. So, but if you are up for it, and we need champions, it's like people who are drivers of things, you know.
Yes. So I'm prepared to be a champion, a voice in the online space. I happen to be good at groups. I have already climbed in there, and I'm prepared to commit long term. What I'd like to understand is how I can shape messaging to support you getting in the help you need now. I don't want the org to burn out, for goodness sake. We want to go back next year. And so in my mind, if we've got a capacity issue, it's not about putting more work and more responsibility onto the few who are already struggling. It's up to us to say, okay, how do we step forward to support this thing? And I think perhaps there are volunteers out there who don't realize they can volunteer year round. They think it's about going to the event. And so I've been criticized as being a sparkle pony, because a lot of my friends at the event see me doing nothing. Okay. And that's because I'm so heavy year round that I feel when I get there, I'm at liberty to do less because I've already done the hours.
Yeah.
And I think that there are perhaps some people who are going, okay, I volunteer when I get there, not realizing that there are 365 years in the day that you can fill with this thing if you really want to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We can work you to death if you need us to. And that's the thing, is like all volunteering is valid, you know, like, you know, the people who come and do greeters shifts, and the best obviously is the toilet run, and, you know, like people, you know, stirring the shits, great thing to do. But yeah, we definitely do need, we need a lot of secretarial, and that's not boring secretarial, that's interesting secretarial, convening meetings, taking minutes, you know, corralling 1 million people, because this is a community-based thing, and so we always are needing to wrangle a lot of people to get opinions and then to synthesize that information. We really struggle with metabolizing data and stuff like that. I mean, no comment on Tim and Brian, who've been
Mons, are you still there?
working into it for the last.
Yeah, glad wasn't enough. No.
weeks.
Sorry. Oh gosh, Mons. While that is sorting itself out, we have Rural Muller that'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, in one of your slides, you said that next year's event is from the 25th. The 25th is a Tuesday. Surely you mean the 24th of April.
Oh, you've passed the test. Well done. It'll probably be the Monday. At least someone's. Yeah.
Really hoping to get there a few days earlier. I always planned to come to AfrikaBurn. If everything had worked out in 2020, I would have been there almost a week early, and that's always been the plan.
Cool. Thank you for pointing that out.
Right.
Yeah, those dates, the directors are still signing those dates off, so they're agreed, and everyone's on board apart from the spelling mistake I made. But they still have to be properly signed off by the director. So we haven't been publicising them much, and with good reason, because I got them wrong.
Great. We have a comment that for this person, they don't have a proper mic, so I'll be asking the question for them. And this comes from Jean Clark. I was a first-time burner and fell in love with it. I was super mind blown and starry-eyed, but I was slightly disappointed by the amount of burns. It felt a bit like unnecessary pollution, especially considering the carbon footprint to get to the event. How about fewer burns? I get that it's ironic to reduce the burns at a burn, but how about bringing the concept into the 21st century where climate change is a huge issue? Right.
Is Mon still here?
I don't know. I see that her screen has come off our. I don't see here, no. And Danny, is your hand up for that in relation to the question?
Yeah. I mean, it's I haven't posted anything about not burning my artwork this last year, but I know that I've set a precedent, and it's not so much. Okay, I just need to go back a little bit. 2-3 years ago, I came to AfrikaBurn in 2019, and I wanted to build something in 2020, and I built a piece of word art, Dream a Little Dream, this year. And when I first put it forward to AfrikaBurn, I said, it was when we were still at Stony, and I said I would like it to be semi-permanent because of the amount of time and effort and investment that I'd put into it. And at the time, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, I'm not sure, I didn't want to burn it because dreams don't go up in smoke. So my word art was Dream a Little Dream. And one of the things that I wanted it to stand for was the sustainability and the fact that the aggregate that we put on it would last for longer than 1 or 2 years. It would last for maybe 5 years or 10 years. Now, it was a very personal project for me to begin with, because it was a song that my mother sang. But as I was building it over the last 2.5 years with a pandemic in between, it became clear to me that I couldn't burn it because of the effort, because of the cost associated with it, and because of the wastefulness. And it became much more apparent to me when it was there in the ground. But I do understand from AfrikaBurn's perspective that the origins of AfrikaBurn are very much catharsis, the circularity of life, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the idea of a burn. But the world is changing. And if we don't look at what we waste billions of fossil fuels at AfrikaBurn, there's no denying it. But it's a question I'm asking myself is, where is AfrikaBurn now, and where would it be going in the next 5 to 20 years? Because I saw what we took there and I saw what we took out. And even though we try and mitigate, as the Tree of Stories said, we try and give good trace back. We try and either move our installations and move them to a place where they could be used, on an ongoing basis, is what it's such a difficult question to ask. I don't want Dream a Little Dream to burn down for very personal reasons, but for sustainability reasons, it's going to be toxic to the environment. I'm going to have to take it down and burn it in very specific pieces. But I also love the burns. I love the burns and what they stand for. So it's a huge question to ask and comment on.
Yeah, some comments that were coming through about burning. It brings about the immediacy of it, whereas the flip side, we don't want our art to come move. This is a good question. I think we can always ask and deliberate, but I think the main thing about AfrikaBurn, how the burn came about with Burning Man, it's a representation of letting go. But yet, I guess just the 21st century of carbon footprint. Yeah. I see another hand up. That's Skippers.
Yeah, just to speak to the question of the number of burns. I've been involved for a number of years in operations. I'm not anymore in the processes for the projects, for the different projects. And in actual fact, us as an organization try our best to get artists to create art that doesn't burn. Something that can live somewhere else, can go to a city or to a promenade or something like that. Within the process itself, we ask people for justification on why they want to burn, their pieces. And we've put in processes and so on to make certain that people don't, burn like huge amounts of plastic or so on, on top of the things that are already burning. So the viewpoint is that we actually prefer artists not to burn. But at the end of the day, it's their own decision as an artist. It's not our decision really to make.
Yeah. I hear you. I totally hear you.
All right. Yeah. It's as we all know, that this is a community-driven experiment, and we try to do this in an elastic part of way, I guess, after COVID. But let's say we should wrap this up soon. It has been about 2 hours already, and I thank everyone for attending. I thank Brian, Tim, Mons for your time here, as well for taking on the questions, as well as those that have given questions and suggestions as well. As you know, that we do have an email address that you can send any more suggestions or questions, and that'll be info@afrikaburn.com, and we'll pick it up from there and let you know what our thoughts are. We have had quite a few comments coming from everyone else. I can't say your names as there were quite a bit, but all saying thank you for the town hall. This has been great to hear everybody's views, especially from the survey. And I need to make a quick mention to a person named Robert Pender, who's on here, who's just mentioned that summer solstice or winter solstice is the 23rd of September too. He can actually help us out with sound or how to bring about the policy, I guess. And that was in the sense of where he's from, that even the community in the area that they are, they do their own self-check with the dB monitors or meters on their phone and things like that. So again, community-driven artwork to community-driven sharing of music and consideration of space. All right. Yeah. If that is all, let's draw this Town Hall 22, the second Town Hall of this year, to a close. All right, I see a lot of hands. Everyone can unmute yourself and make a lot of noise as the say right now. Cool, great.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Ciao.